My wife texted, "Can you co-sign a small loan for my online store?" I replied, "Of course." I then discovered the store was fake, and the loan was for her lover's new sports car. I called the bank, proved the fraud, and as the co-signer, I requested the car be repossessed, when she called me from the empty parking spot, screaming. The whole thing started because I got paid to trust people. I'm Ethan, 36 years old. I'm a senior loan officer here in Dallas. My job is literally analyzing risk. I spend all day looking at people trying to pull one over on the bank. And I never thought I'd be the easiest mark in my own kitchen. I married Diana 2 years ago. She was 34, and she saw the world as one giant, open credit line. She believed status was everything, and I, the steady income, was the necessary infrastructure. The core of our conflict wasn't about love, it was about my credit score. Diana desperately needed my perfect credit rating to finance her lifestyle, because her own history was riddled with impulsive, unpaid debts. I initially said no to co-signing anything big. But then came the emotional siege, the classic move. She would cry, she would accuse me of not believing in her, and she'd pull out the worst phrase, "If you loved me, you would trust me." That phrase, that toxic demand, always made me cave. I hated the fighting more than I hated the debt. A couple of weeks ago, I got the text. It was casual, just slipped in between emojis and updates about her sales trips. "Hey babe, can you co-sign a small loan for my new online store?" "Just need a little capital boost. It's nothing, promise." I looked at the text. I was exhausted from work. I knew the fight to say no would last a week. The fight to say yes would last 10 seconds. I replied, "Of course." I thought she was finally trying to build something legitimate. I thought the money would be used for inventory or a website, something tangible. But the paperwork arrived a few days later. It wasn't for a business loan or inventory. It was a personal vehicle loan for a massive $80,000 sum. The collateral? A brand new, screaming red Porsche Cayman S. I looked at the application. The primary borrower wasn't Diana. It was Mark. Mark, the personal trainer who was always conveniently available to help Diana with her fitness goals. I had just been asked to co-sign the loan for my wife's lover's car. The rage hit me not as fire, but as a cold, professional certainty. My expertise had just been used to finance my own betrayal. I signed the papers. But not because I was giving up. I signed because, as a loan officer, I knew that my signature made me the ultimate authority on that asset. My signature was the key to unlocking the car for Mark. It was also the key to taking it back. The worst part about signing those loan documents wasn't the risk. It was the quiet knowledge that I was entering a contract based on a triple-layered lie. First, the loan was for a personal car, not an online store. Second, I was co-signing for my fiancé's affair partner, Mark. Third, by signing, I was gaining the power to financially destroy the car, which I planned to use. I went to my office the next morning and started building the case file. I wasn't just planning a breakup, I was planning a repossession. My job as a loan officer came in handy, man. I knew exactly where the weak points in the contract were. I didn't try to cancel the loan immediately. That would have just resulted in a legal mess and let Mark keep the car for a few weeks while the bank sorted out the title. I needed the car gone, instantly and irrevocably. I started the paper trail. I contacted the dealership, feigning excitement. I asked for the VIN number and the specific make/model details for insurance purposes. They gave it to me right away. Then I executed the crucial move. I reported the misrepresentation of the collateral directly to the bank's fraud department. I provided the internal data. The loan application stated the funds were for a business asset, but the VIN number showed it was a personal sports car. I argued that the collateral was misclassified and fraudulently obtained. I knew the bank's protocol. The moment they receive a sworn affidavit of fraud and misrepresentation from a co-signer who also works in the lending industry, they panic. They don't want the liability. They move to secure the asset immediately. I watched my email constantly. Mark and Diana were completely oblivious, celebrating their new sports car that weekend. They posted pictures on social media. Mark driving the bright red Porsche, Diana posing next to it with a smile that screamed, "I won." I printed those pictures, time-stamped them, and put them in a folder labeled Evidence of Non-Business Use. The conflict moved from the personal to the corporate. The bank's collections department called me back Monday morning. "Mr. Hayes, we have secured a repossession order. The car will be seized by end of day Tuesday." My heart hammered. This was it. The absolute, undeniable consequence of their lie. I hadn't filed for divorce yet. I wanted the car gone first. I needed to secure the location. Mark kept the car parked directly in front of his high-end gym, where he worked as a personal trainer. It was his greatest symbol of success. I called the repo company directly and gave them the exact location and a photo of the car. I also provided them with Mark's work schedule. "I need this seizure to happen at peak visibility," I told the agent. "Tuesday, right around noon." I wasn't just taking the car, I was publicly executing their financial facade. I then prepared the final, immediate consequence for Diana. I drafted the divorce papers, but I also wrote a short, precise text message, set to be sent the moment the Porsche was on the flatbed. The time for emotional negotiation was over. This was purely business. The repayment for her betrayal would be delivered in the form of an empty parking spot. The silence of Tuesday morning was deafening. I woke up, and the only thing that mattered was the clock hitting noon. I needed to see the Porsche gone before Diana even knew what hit her. I took the day off work. I drove to a cafe across the street from Mark's high-end gym and ordered a double espresso. I was sitting there, feeling like a spy in my own drama. Mark's red Porsche Cayman S was parked exactly where I knew it would be, right in the premium spot reserved for Trainer of the Month. It was a symbol of his success, the bright red proof of Diana's betrayal. I watched the clock tick toward 12:15 p.m. I saw the tow truck, unmarked, professional, surgical, pull up silently to the curb. The two repo men moved with the practiced efficiency of people who do this for a living. They didn't use loud hooks or chains. They slid a flatbed under the Porsche, secured the wheels, and lifted the entire expensive machine onto the truck. It took maybe 3 minutes total. The best part? Mark was standing right inside the gym entrance, talking loudly on his headset, completely oblivious. He was looking the other way, admiring his own reflection or something equally narcissistic. The sight of that bright red car, the car I co-signed for, disappearing silently down the highway was the most beautiful moment of the last 3 years. I didn't smile yet. I waited for the final, devastating reveal. I knew Mark's schedule. He always took his high-paying 1 p.m. client to lunch in that car. I watched him finish his call, grab his keys from the desk, and walk confidently toward the door. He stepped outside, looking straight at the empty parking spot. He paused. Just paused, like his brain couldn't process the simple visual data. He looked left, then right, then back at the spot again. Confusion turned into irritation. He must have thought it was a prank. Then, the panic started. He began frantically dialing his phone. I knew he was calling Diana. That was my cue. I opened my own phone and sent the pre-drafted text to Diana. It was short, precise, and final. My text. I just saw Mark's car get towed from the gym. Turns out the bank flagged the loan for fraud. Enjoy your final month of free payments. I didn't sign it. I didn't add any flair. I just delivered the logistical information. Mark was still standing in the middle of the parking lot, looking utterly defeated. when the call came through from Diana. He answered, and I watched him listen, his face draining of all color. He looked straight across the street, right at my cafe booth. He didn't see me, but he saw the car where I was sitting. He sensed the invisible author of his ruin. He screamed into the phone. Not an angry scream, but a desperate animal howl of betrayal and fear. I knew Diana was getting the full force of his terror. I finished my coffee, finally allowing myself a slow, deep, satisfying smile. I had warned her. She called it a test of love. I called it a collateral risk. And I just executed the largest, cleanest asset seizure of my career. The sound of Mark's desperate howl carried across the street, even over the rush hour traffic. It was pure chaos, and honestly, it was the best lunch show I've ever seen. I packed up my laptop, paid the waiter, and drove straight home. I knew Diana would be waiting, but I needed the confrontation to happen on my territory, not in the middle of a parking lot. I was right. She was home before me, pacing the living room like a caged animal. She was screaming into her phone when I walked in, and I heard her drop the line that told me everything. "The bank did what? That was our loan. You have to stop them, Mark." She hung up, saw me, and immediately launched into a full-scale panic attack. "Ethan! You did this. You filed a false report. You ruined Mark's career. That car was his livelihood." I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. My calmness was my armor. "I didn't file a false report, Diana," I said, my voice completely level. "I reported fraud. You signed a business loan application for a personal sports car for your lover." "It's not my lover. He's my friend. He needed the car for his business," she shrieked. "His business is personal training, Diana. He drives a Civic. He needed the Porsche for his image. And you lied, right here on the documents, that it was for an online store." I let the silence hang. Her entire defense was based on a lie I had the paperwork to crush. She tried the emotional shift. The tears started flowing. Real, panicked tears. "I did it for us, Ethan. I wanted you to see I could make smart financial decisions. I was trying to leverage the credit line." I just shook my head. "No, you didn't do it for us. You did it because Mark convinced you that a red sports car would make you look good." The absolute chaos was just beginning. Her phone started ringing again. It was her mother, calling from out of state. I picked up the house phone instead, something I knew she wouldn't expect. "Hello, Patricia?" "This is Ethan." Her mother's voice, usually sweet, was immediately accusatory. "Ethan, what is this nonsense about the car? Diana says you're trying to ruin her best friend." "Patricia," I said, keeping my voice gentle, like I was trying to solve a puzzle. "I co-signed a loan based on fraud. I did it because Diana pleaded that she needed the money for an online store. That store never existed. The car was seized today, in front of his gym, because I reported the truth. I let the facts do the heavy lifting. I didn't need to yell. Patricia didn't know how to argue with logic. But he's Diana's friend. He's important to her." "My signature was more important," I replied, "and I'm calling my lawyer right now to file for divorce based on documented financial fraud." I hung up. I looked at Diana, who was now utterly defeated, realizing I had just weaponized her entire family against her. She sank to the floor, pulling at her hair. "You heartless accountant! You didn't even love me. You just loved the perfect credit score." "You're right," I said, my voice hardening. "I did love the stability. And that stability just repossessed your boyfriend's car." The game was over. The paperwork was ready. The phone was still warm from the call with her mother, Patricia, but the confrontation was about to go corporate. Look, I didn't just want the car gone. I wanted consequences that matched the audacity of her lie. Mark, the trainer, wasn't just a side piece. He was the visible asset, the centerpiece of her rebellion, and he needed to feel the pinch, too. First, the immediate threat. Diana rushed to her room, trying to call the repo company, a pathetic attempt to save the Porsche. I went straight to my laptop. The divorce was filed, but the social score needed settling. I knew Mark's gym used a specific, upscale scheduling app. I accessed my own credit monitoring system and set up a fraud alert on Mark's social security number, citing financial liability linked to ongoing investigation. It wasn't a crime. It was an extreme inconvenience. Every time he tried to apply for credit, a notification would pop up. His perfect image was now tainted by a data flag. The second wave of consequence hit Diana's career. She worked in sales, and her reputation was everything. I contacted the licensing board for her firm, anonymously, citing the fraudulent loan documentation she co-signed. I didn't say she cheated. I just pointed out that a financial professional used falsified documents for a personal gain, violating ethical standards. Pure logistics, no emotion. Then, the final, most satisfying call. I called the general manager of Mark's gym. I introduced myself politely, but firmly. I told him I was the co-signer on the seized vehicle, and I had proof the loan was fraudulently obtained to finance Mark's image. I didn't ask the manager to fire Mark. I just asked if the gym was aware their top trainer was involved in a fraud case that led to a public asset seizure. The manager was horrified. The gym's brand depended on exclusivity and professionalism. A public repo in the premium spot? That was an absolute catastrophe for their optics. I hung up, knowing the dominoes were falling fast. I had set the system to self-destruct. Mark called me an hour later from an unknown number. He wasn't arrogant anymore. He was screaming about his job, his reputation, and his lost car. "You destroyed me, Ethan." "What did you do to my credit? What did you tell my boss?" "I didn't tell your boss anything, Mark," I replied, my voice gentle, almost bored. "I just told the bank the truth. And the truth is bad for your business. And your car is gone, by the way. I hope you enjoy walking." I hung up and blocked the number. The repayment for her betrayal would be delivered not just by the bank, but by her lover's total financial and professional ruin. That's what happens when you mistake a stable guy for a stupid one. "You're going to regret this," Diana finally managed to text, hours after the Porsche was gone. And I thought, dude, I already regret letting you talk me into this loan 2 months ago. I'm good. The final week was just cleanup. I didn't want any residual contamination. First, the apartment. I filed the paperwork. She had to go. She tried to fight it, of course, using the classic "I've established residency" argument. I simply had my lawyer send over the lease, which was solely in my name, along with the bank records proving her minimal contribution. The legal reality was brutal. She was a guest who had worn out her welcome. But the real, soul-crushing consequence hit Mark first. I drove past his gym on Wednesday afternoon. The premium parking spot was still empty. I noticed 2 police cars and 2 sharp-suited people standing near the entrance. My jaw dropped, man. They were waiting for him. I learned later that the company I tipped off, the one handling the car loan fraud, had sent investigators. They were looking into Mark's multiple undisclosed debts and his use of stolen funds, the Porsche, to secure gym space and attract clients. Mark didn't just lose his car, he lost his entire business facade. The engine of his success was now a pile of legal evidence. I knew Diana would be hysterical, so I waited for her call. It came around 5 p.m., just as she was leaving work. She wasn't screaming about the divorce, she was screaming about Mark. "Ethan, they took Mark, the police. They're saying he committed fraud. You ruined his life." "He committed fraud, Diana," I corrected, using the name of the man who had just repossessed her boyfriend. "I just reported the truth. He was going to pay you back." "This is cruel. You're just jealous." "I'm not jealous," I said, leaning back in my office chair. "I'm relieved. The threat is contained. I then delivered the final severance. I need you out of the apartment by Friday. I've left a box of your remaining things outside the door. But where will I go? My credit is shot. I can't rent anything, she wailed. She was finally facing the consequence of her money is not real philosophy. You have friends, Diana, I reminded her. The ones you spent $15,000 on in Miami. Ask them to hold space for you. The silence on the line was total. She knew she had lost the social war, too. She hung up. I drove home that evening, changed the locks one last time to a non-keypad system, and sat in the quiet living room. The air felt clean. The debt was severed. The cheating was exposed. The two people who had mocked my stability were left utterly stripped of their own. That's the perfect outcome for a risk analyst. Man, the dust settled fast after that. Like zero residue. The final week was just logistics. I didn't see Diana again. She sent a friend to grab her last bag, leaving a note that was just pure, unedited entitlement about my side of the story. I just shredded the note. I didn't care about her story anymore. I had the facts. Mark, the trainer, lost his job within a week. You can't be the face of a high-end gym when corporate fraud investigators are hanging around your parking lot. The Porsche was auctioned off by the bank. The best part? Diana and Mark immediately turned on each other. That connection she bragged about vanished the second they realized they were both broke and being pursued by creditors. She moved back in with her parents, which, was the ultimate humiliation for the girl who preached about manifesting abundance. Her mother, Patricia, called me once. She didn't yell. She was just defeated. Ethan, she's having to work 3 minimum wage jobs just to pay the interest on that card. She can't rent anything. Her credit is 0. I listened to her mother's sad truth and thought, that's exactly right. I didn't cause her financial ruin. I simply removed the structural support that allowed her to live beyond her means. Her independence proved to be a myth. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore, man. Too many ghosts of her lies. The place smelled like betrayal and expensive perfume. I bought a small, clean apartment building in a low-key part of Dallas. I became my own landlord. I focused on managing my assets, making sure every transaction was clean, legal, and predictable. I now teach financial literacy workshops on the side. I use the story of the Porsche, anonymously, of course, as a case study in collateral risk management. I haven't started dating yet. I'm not ready. The process of getting out was so complex that I need time to trust my own judgment again. The ultimate revenge wasn't taking the car. It was the fact that Diana is stuck knowing that I, the guy she thought was too stupid to check the paperwork, was the one who surgically dismantled her entire life. She thought I only loved the stability. I proved that my commitment to stability was absolute. I got the best possible outcome for a risk analyst. I removed the liability, secured the assets, and ensured the fraudulent party was held accountable by the system she thought she could game. I look out at the city now. It's quiet. It's orderly. The silence is the sound of my life finally running clean. I didn't lose my dignity. I just bought it back at the expense of a Porsche.